it's really crowded down there. It takes like 15 minutes to get across the hall here.
It's like Comic-Con downstairs. Wait, it is Comic-Con. It's like San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Not quite like San Diego, but
Well, you know,
Actually, it kind of is.
it's
super
in the
crowded.
microcosm, you know, when you can't, when you're...
when you can't move
Yeah.
and you feel like you're little ants walking all over the place.
Absolutely,
yeah, you're
yes.
right.
But there's more costumes here, we noticed. Like, there's way more people dressed up here than there is, I think, in any other show, maybe except outside of that show in Georgia. What's that, with Dragon Con?
Yeah, Dragon Con.
Yeah, they like to dress up
It's a
there.
huge costume show. But you know, it's...
They like to spank each other. And
Furries?
yeah,
Furries like to spank each
saw
other.
some furries down there.
How did you two come about working together? What
That's a great
brought you
question.
together?
Punisher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Timmy, well, it was actually the Tim's covers for the comic that Marvel sent me after I'd turned down the role a couple of times. I said, it's just, you know, the superhero thing, I'm just not, I mean, it's fun for people, some people, but I wasn't a fan. But then they sent me the Bradstreet covers to the show, to the book, and they had such a gritty, realistic feel to them. And I said, well, if we could do something like that, that would be terrific. And then I don't, from my end, I asked them if they would want to do a poster, a special poster, just for Comic-Con by Tim as me as the Punisher, which they agreed to. And so we set up a little photo shoot in Santa Monica. I guess they brought you up from San Diego, right?
Mhm.
Were you still living down there?
Yeah.
And we got together at a little photo shoot house in Santa Monica, and that's when Tim and I first met. And we just hit it off instantly, and just became really good friends.
Yeah, it's funny too because when I first found out there was going to be a Punisher movie, I wanted to be a part of it, and I knew that Gail Ann Hurd was producing it, and I'm a longtime fan of Gail's work, and I was like, how do I get involved with this? So I got a hold of the only person that I thought might get me in touch with Gail Ann Hurd, which was Frank Darabont. And Darabont said, I'll do you one better. I'll introduce you to her husband. Her and Jonathan Hensley, who's directing the movie, by the way, are dear friends of mine. So he called Jonathan Hensley, and John called me, and we talked about doing all kinds of stuff, me doing all kinds of stuff on the film, conceptually, and like just being a big part of it. And when it came time, and I gave him the idea for the whole teaser trailer, and when it came time to do the movie, Jonathan said, I can't hire you. And I said, why? And he said, well, Marvel says they own all these covers. What do we need you for? And I said, oh, well, how disappointing. And so I called Ari Arad, one of the producers, and I said, you know, designing the Punisher is the last thing I was going to do on that movie. That's done. There was a lot of other things they said, but I said, you know, what you should think about is, at the very least, is I would love to do a poster, a teaser poster for the film, like I do the covers, but with Thomas Jane instead of my Punisher model. And so that was going on while Tom was advocating for me, which is just strange. And Ari said something like, well, yeah, we'll keep that in mind, thanks, Tim. And I didn't know Ari at the time, necessarily, and so I think a month or two went by, and then he emailed me out of the blue, and he goes, I got a terrific idea. We'd love for you to do posters for the... And,
Comic-Con.
yeah.
So meanwhile, they were also doing posters for the movie, and they were just terrible. And when we went through them, everybody just rejected these realistic posters of me and John Travolta.
Photoshop heads, you know.
But then Tim had done some work too, and Tim's poster work ended up being the poster for the film itself.
Yeah, they took, well, yeah, we ended up doing 5 teaser posters and doing some big release at Comic-Con, and then they hired me to do the theatricals.
So then, when I was doing press in San Diego, I got together with Tim, and I pitched him this idea I had for a comic, and that turned out to be Bad Planet. Tim hooked me up with Steve Niles, who taught me how to write for comics, and we formed a company together, me and Tim and Steve, called Raw Studios, and we're still at it today. You know, we just put out a book called Dark Country, which we brought some copies here, and That was a graphic novel adaptation of the movie that we did. And Thomas Ott, who I've always been a big fan of, I got in touch with him, and I actually was in Paris, and we went out to dinner, and I pitched him this idea, and Thomas agreed to do the graphic novel. And then we're also working on a werewolf book with another native son, Sean O'Connor, who's from London, and we've just kind of kept at it, doing our boutique comic book stuff, and having a lot of fun. Very low output, but high quality.
Yeah, it's more of a boutique kind of like, we're not in it to put out like a line of comic books. We're in it to develop and nurture our own kind of projects, and it's interesting that Tom was not interested in doing a superhero when they offered him the Punisher, because he's a lifelong comic collector. More while I think your proclivity was more for the undergrounds and the old EC comic books and things of that nature. So I guess on that level, I can see why superheroes weren't something that was jumping out at you.
Yeah, I just personally never really got into it.
Couldn't see yourself walking around in a spandex costume. Yeah.
It's too bad. I could have been a lot richer. I did.
When you're writing, are you influenced by the style of how Tim draws, or are you influenced when you draw how the writing is approached? How does this work together? Do you write a piece at a time and then draw, or how does the method go into this, creating the whole comic?
We have a
Or novel?
simpatico, Tom and I do, and I don't know whether it's we're near the same age and from the same part of the country, and we grew up with the same stuff. But he turns me on to stuff that I was never into. But I don't know if that goes both ways. But Tom is. I always say that Tom's kind of my muse in a way, like with covers, because he's such a chameleon as an actor. He's done a post for Nick Fury for me. He's been El Borak, Robert E. Howard's El Borak. He's Cal McDonald, and I'll, because I shoot a lot of photos of him here and there, and or on movie projects, I end up using that stuff in my own work. And so he's kind of my De Niro if I was Scorsese. But I think he trusts my sensibilities too. With Raw Studios, I do all the ad design, all the art direction and stuff like that, and he does as well.
He lays out the books and
We
does
do.
all the art direction inside all the books.
Well, he does a lot of it too. I mean, he's very hands-on with the artists. He's an artist too, and he's a creator, and part of that creation is working on all those levels in the development of something. And
I'm an artist who can't draw.
he designed our Bad Planet logo, though.
Guys, tell us a bit more about Dark Country if people haven't seen it yet, and what is it about the comic book world that's so appealing?
I don't know. I mean, I think graphic novels are just so imaginative, and I love the fact that they're a indigenously American art form. That they're they're so relatively new. The paper canvas is it's as imaginative as you want to get. I mean, any kind of story you can tell, you can do through comics. You can, the Bad Planet story that we did, if you did that as a movie, it would be a $400 million film, they're novels with pictures. They can be poetry, they can be sublime, they can tell in small, intimate stories, where they can be, they can encompass multiple universes. It's a really amazing canvas, and you see with shows like this, you see the breadth and the depth of just how varied all that imaginative world is, and there's an audience for whatever you can create in that world. It's very specific, it's there's so many different styles of art, from Frank Miller to Wally Wood, to Brendo to, I mean, it's just to Bradstreet, there's just there's so much that you can do with that world visually. And it's always just held a fascination for me in terms of story, and the marriage of art and story is something that is also, so, you know, it creates its own mystique in a way. The artist that you choose to tell the story is sort of, that paints the palette of the kind of world that you're going to enter. You can tell so much without words, you know, and then of course you can have fantastic writing. You know, there's comic books out there that are as well written as any novel, with all the sublime and poetry, and so it's really captivating, you know, and it's always captivated my imagination, and I try to stay open to all different styles, you know, kind of get into all different kinds of, like Tim said, I'm a big fan of the underground comics that started in the '60s, but then I also like really cartoony stuff, and more. Tim and I lean toward a sort of the more realistic, illustrative style of book. But then we work with somebody like Thomas Ott, who does scratchboard. He takes a black sheet of paper and he scratches the white into the paper, and that's amazing and unique.